Hi, y'all. I'm Julie. I'm a trauma-informed adoptee coach and somatic healing guide. After overcoming deep abandonment wounds, I now help adult adoptees move from feeling lost and disconnected to experiencing profound self-belonging. I know what it is like to carry the weight of abandonment, to feel stuck in patterns of longing, adapting, and searching for belonging, to have tried every healing modality available and come up empty. My own healing has taught me this. The answers aren't out there, they're buried within me, and I'm here to guide you home to yourself. The Resilience Project podcast brings voice, visibility, and validation to the parts of adoption society rarely names, but all of us feel. Through an trauma-informed somatic lens, I explore the lived experiences of the entire adoption constellation with a tender emphasis on the adoptee experience. This podcast goes beyond storytelling into soul telling. It offers embodied insight, compassionate education, and a path towards awareness, hope, and strength. Each episode invites listeners to understand adoption more deeply, not just with the mind, but with the nervous system, and to reconnect with the truth, identity, and belonging that were always yours to come home to. Welcome. Hey, everybody. I am so excited to be with you. Welcome to the Resilience Project podcast. We are here with one of my current clients, Mike. This is the first time I've actually ever interviewed somebody for a podcast. I mean, I've been interviewed, but it's really nice to be with Mike. And I'm encouraged that this was something that he was excited to do, maybe. So we will go ahead and dive in. The first thing that I wanted to ask you, Mike, was to just let people know who you are and how you ended up in my world.
Well, that's loaded. The question there is how far to go back.
However far back you want to go.
So I was adopted as an infant, and I really have no further details than that. Grew up in a relatively normal home, a mom and a dad, and so on. My first wife passed from cancer in 2017, and I was married again in 18 and divorced in 23. And the fallout from that, having put essentially everything I had into preserving this marriage, broke me open in ways that I'm not sure I could describe well yet. And somewhere in this process, I got a Facebook account intending to have access to Messenger. And I found almost randomly the Christian adoptees support page where I ran into Julie, who is likely the first serious person I ever met online. And that is the short story of how I came into your world.
When you say this a lot, but when you say the first serious person you met online, what do you mean? Like what was your experience before that?
Well, I ran a trucking company 20 some years. So a long time ago, I had my own website as advertisement for that. And all it ever brought me was people looking for stuff essentially free, or tire kickers, or, other folks offering other services tangentially related to what I was doing, but not necessarily relevant. And so when I say first serious person, this person actually offering up something that looked like it was of value and relevant to where I am.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And that was your first time ever on a social media platform, right?
Yeah, the day I met you on Zoom, well, yes, that was the first time I'd ever been on Facebook or any other social media. And the day I met you on Zoom was actually the first time I'd ever used that program as well.
Gosh, I didn't even know that, Mike. It didn't even seem like it was that difficult for you. You seemed fine with it.
It was not that difficult. Computers are not that hard to use. I just have chosen not to for the most part.
I'm glad you did. My question is, before we actually started working together, how would you describe what being you felt like? Being in your own body, what did it feel like?
At that point, it was awful.
I probably shouldn't laugh. Sorry.
It is a little comical. It was not good. I think I could say that I was misfit in my own skin and probably overwhelmed and felt unfit to live in the world with everybody else.
Can you describe that? When you say misfit and unfit in your own skin, I know at the time you may not have been able to describe what it felt like in your body, but now looking back, how would you describe that?
So you quote often Brene Brown, who quotes Maya Angelou, I belong everywhere and nowhere. I had half of that, I belong nowhere. Maybe to put a point to it, giving my adopted parents credit, they have tried to mold me in ways they thought relevant or important. What they actually have done over time is oppose what is me in favor of who they are. So in practice, as long as I say what they think, everything is fine. Outside of that, I am in line for swift correction, even at 58 years old.
Yeah. So then would you say unfit for your own skin? Did you have any idea what that felt like in your body then?
No, because that was
Okay.
normal. It was what I have known all my life.
Right. There was no, this is not comfortable. This is not right. For you, it was common. You had nothing to compare it to.
That is true.
Cool. Okay. So then with that, how did you notice when it was time for something different? How did you notice that I need something more?
5 years ago, I actually found the Primal Wound book in a used bookstore. And reading that gave me some ability to think about and some vocabulary for things I have long felt, but never been able to describe. And it really clued me in that adoption was a piece of this. Again, broken open post divorce, I largely came to a place where I was going to have to figure me out because my only other option was going to be self destruction.
You've talked about that even ending your life. There were times where you felt that way, right?
I have considered that pretty carefully on and off most of my life at different points. It is
Yeah,
a
it's
chapter I have
sad.
lived this long.
Yeah, right. It's that whole the statistic that really blew my mind when I was beginning this work about adoptees being, and I really think this is much lower than it actually is, but adoptees being 4 times more likely to attempt suicide is daunting when you think about it. And
Is
and you have felt that.
no doubt quite a lot over time.
Yeah. What did you think the problem was back then when you found me on the support group? And what led you to think I need help here? What was that turning point for you?
So especially having dealt with my ex recently, the problem is or I thought the problem was my inability to act or behave in appropriate ways to suit the people around me. I think I can look back and say now that 50% of the problem was clearly hers, give or take a little. But the real problem is I have spent my whole life trying to act in ways that are appropriate to the people around me without having any idea who I am and consequently how I should present myself other than tailored to suit everybody else.
Yeah, this is a very common adoptee experience, right? It's that whole chameleon idea that I'm going to walk into a room and look and see what's here and then adjust myself accordingly. We read the room really, really well. And then we figure out a way to become whatever,
Mhm.
whomever wants us to be in order to be accepted because we long for that more than we do anything else as adoptees because that feeling is not something that we know well.
Exactly true.
What was that like for you? How did that manifest itself for you?
With my folks in particular, like I described earlier, reading them and saying what they think. And that's really how to be safe around them. In some ways, it has meant not putting myself into places where there are people who I don't want to parrot what they think, either because I don't believe it's true or I don't agree with it or whatever. And that has probably limited my social exposure over time. And that's, as I say that, that's probably a lot more true than I realize.
Tell me more about that.
I have lived the great majority of my adult life self employed. You don't want to put yourself in situations with a bunch of people who have no experience with this and have to agree with them in order to maintain social order or decorum or whatever else, if that's how you know how to get along. So that whole segment of people gets taken out as potentially people to to be around.
People to avoid.
True.
So then with that, we've had a lot of conversations about this even in our coaching calls when we had our sessions, but the divorce, what do you think has been the hardest part of trying to navigate this alone?
I think I am much more dramatically alone than one might realize. My ex-wife was very effective at convincing 3 churches full of people that I am abusive. Where do you go find new friends after that?
Especially in a small town in Idaho.
Yeah. In terms of navigating alone, you create for yourself a sounding board or a careful way to evaluate what you think and say that is not an echo chamber for your own thoughts, wants, needs, and desires, and thus work with what is true rather than what is in your head. And that's a daunting task.
Well, it's a daunting task, especially when you're being told that what is true is not.
Yes, that's even worse.
So then you feel gaslit. You feel like you have to abandon yourself in order to achieve connection.
It's true. And that actually felt normal. That's probably how I have operated the great majority of my life. And
Exactly, right? There was a comfort in that because you did that in your home. You just described it. I need to make sure I speak what they want me to say. So I'm going to abandon whatever it is I think, feel, whatever, in order for them to be okay with me because I don't want to rock the boat. It's that whole status quo idea.
it is.
Yeah. Anything more there you want to add?
I don't recommend it.
Okay, then we'll just move on then. Well, thank you for sharing that. Totally can relate. Very much understand that. That's hilarious. So let's move into a little bit of a different vein here. I know that we didn't know each other at all when we started working together. So, what about my approach or the language that I used allowed you to feel safe enough to actually reach out to me and pursue that?
The way you present yourself and speak is first off board and professional and maybe it's not the right words, but clean and crisp. You do not tend to use more words than necessary. That in itself is a rare skill. It had to be the first time I met you. It was clear that we have some common life experience, and the idea that you are teaching out of the solutions you found to your experience is wonderful. If you want to learn to do something, you do not go find people who have failed at it to learn from. You go find people who have succeeded at it. And moreover, there are zillions of people who will teach you something that they know because they learned it from a book. There are very few people who will teach you something experientially that they have lived. And it's a whole different set of teaching.
Well, I appreciate that. I think also I've failed plenty. So I think those failures and learning from them have proved to be what the success you may see, right? It's allowing those things to refine me and make me who I am, allowed me to refine and make the program that I did.
And that is the point. You didn't approach me and say, I have this problem and I've failed at it and I can teach you how. You approached me and said, I have had all these problems and 20 years later, I have had success in overcoming them and I can teach you how to do that. Most people do not teach from their experience, whether it is failure or not, but that is where the best learning and the best pedagogy comes from. You can look at me and hear what I say and understand the pitfall I'm about to fall into and help me avoid it much better than somebody who's never had to run through that pit themselves.
Yeah, there's something really powerful, and it's the whole reason why I went into my master's in counseling for in the first place was this whole idea of wounded healers. Oh, I wish I could remember whose book that was right now, but I can't. It was one of the books that I ended up reading for my master's program, but I remember feeling like, oh, that's definitely what I am. When you come from a place of wounding and you have found, in a lot of ways, crawled your way out of that and learned how to be on the other side, be with yourself, not call yourself an idiot anymore, in very basic terms. There's something really powerful about being able to articulate that into something that will help others. There's what we prayed about before we started. There's our spirits recognized this person knows what I've been through. Now, I can't ever know exactly what you've been through, ever, but I can know what you've experienced to some extent because I've experienced a lot of it too as an adoptee myself. And so there's something really powerful about that I think has made what we do in Revolution so transformational.
It is true. Anything I have learned well over time, I have learned well by watching people who do it well. And not only do you watch them and watch what they do or how they do it, but when they are speaking and relating stories of their working lifetime doing whatever that is, most of the time the entertaining stories are the ones that have held a problem that needed to be solved. And so being in the orbit of people that do something you want to learn to do well provides learning opportunity. And that is very much been true being around you.
I received that. Thank you so much. So I guess I'm curious because you'd never, and a lot of people in the adoptee spaces are just now being turned on to this whole idea of somatics, which just means the body. But it was what I found was my missing piece. It was this piece that I had been searching for years, just like we search for those family members, which is a whole other conversation because interestingly, tonight in Revolution, we're having somebody come in who works for DNA Angels to talk about this, and we'll get there, Mike. But I know that's been a point of kind of anxious nervousness, whatever. And it was cool to hear you yesterday say, I think I'm ready to have her come in and speak. I think I'm ready to give her my information. That's huge. So we can talk more about that. I want to put a little pin in that for now. But for me, I know it was very difficult for me to connect my head to my body, partly because I didn't have the language for it. Primal wound, like you described, gave me that language for the first time. What I'm curious about with you is, was there anything as we began to explore somatic work or even look at what we were doing from an adoptee lens that surprised you?
In terms of pure surprise, the simplicity of it, once you have had the first experience of meeting yourself somewhere else, or some prior version, I guess is the better way to put that. As part of marriage counseling, I have been talked to about how to bring something from your head to your heart or how to let Jesus into XYZ problem. And it has largely all been talk, whereas the somatics provides the tools to go back and see and feel what you thought and felt then and actually have something that you can work with to evaluate or process from, where otherwise you are only working with what's in your mind.
Right. Yeah. So talk alone really doesn't achieve what you have noticed somatics has. The other thing that I heard you say was it's a lot more simple than people think.
It really is. Having been through the process with you, I don't know, a half dozen or 10 or 15 times now, having access to what is inside me, body memory and so on is becoming much, much easier over time.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Did I immediately throw you in the deep end of this work?
Oh, yeah. And I drowned, clearly. No, you did not. Not at all.
So let's talk about that. What was that like? You obviously knew in your body that this was the next right step. What was that like for you? What were the first practices that actually moved the needle for you? Was it the visualizations that we did back to your former self, as you were just talking about? Or was it something different? Was it something as simple as laying a hand on a part of your body? What was it for you?
One of the first things that spits out was watching you work with somebody else in the group and realizing that there is empathy inside me that I had never had access to before. And I think that was probably the clue that there was a lot there to work with and I needed to learn how. And it was is not a small clue. You will remember working with someone else, and I'm sitting here in my office with water falling off of my face. And I was shocked at the intensity of that reaction at the time. And some of that was the learning of being in your orbit to go, not only is this okay, it is probably normal and healthy and something to learn to work with rather than something to avoid. And that was a real shift.
I remember that. And I remember you actually messaging me after and saying what a blessing it was to witness that, to be able to experience that yourself. I love that. Could you describe what that felt like in your body besides tears, the water falling from your face? Can you remember what that felt like in your body?
I'd have to say it was probably how a mop feels when you wring it out in something that twists it.
Good metaphor.
And the obvious overflow came right out of my eyes.
So were you feeling that in the place that you normally feel it, which is your gut?
I would say I probably felt it kind of through the center of myself from throat all the way down.
Yeah. And that seems to be when you feel a lot of emotions. This is interesting. Every person feels things in their body differently. But what I've noticed with Mike is when it's a strong feeling, it's usually from throat. It's like the whole middle portion of your
Whole upper
body.
body. Yep.
Yeah. It's really interesting. But you wouldn't have been able to identify that before, correct?
No, and I hadn't considered how it felt until just now.
Well, I've never asked you to describe it. Like, there's definitely been times in session where I've been like, let's put a texture or a color or a sensation to whatever it is that you're experiencing. And there have been some really funny things that have come from that and some really intense things that have come from that. Only that I would be willing, or that only if you'd be willing to share what those were and what that was like for you. But I think those experiences helped you be able to get to know yourself better. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Empathy in particular, because it's about feeling, is a piece of myself that was shut down, locked away, and walls built around it all my life until now.
Yeah, I love that. So, this is kind of a loaded question, but I'm curious. You've noticed patterns in your life that you weren't able to see before doing this work. And a lot of realizations have come to light. And I wouldn't say because I've called them out. That's not usually what I do. How have you been able to uncover those patterns and what have you learned?
I'd say the uncovering of the patterns has come little pieces at a time. And I get this piece and this piece and that piece over there. And after they've had a little time to settle, all of a sudden you realize they are all related. And you kind of then get a sense as to why they're related and what I have been doing to cause them. And you, at least for me, I have learned this stuff by being quiet and being with myself and becoming self-aware. And some of that is exactly that, simply being able to sit by myself in the quiet. Some of it has been simply laying out my thoughts as a stream of consciousness or being willing to simply write out my thoughts and the value in having them written out, being able to reread them is you then get to see them on a screen or on a page as opposed to in your head. And so you get some different ability to evaluate them that way.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting distinction for me because I remember when you first started the Revolution program, you said to me, I don't journal. I don't do that. I don't
That's
write. It's not my thing.
That is
And
cool.
yeah, and you now have become kind of a prolific writer. It's kind of shocking. And part of that, I think, is too, like, even brought in Liz DeBeta to do a couple of workshops with us, and she's amazing, and she does a lot of writing work. And so, but even before that, you were writing. It just started pouring out of you. So when you think about that, me describing that difference, and you think about who you were then and who you are now, what would you say the biggest difference is?
It's a broad generalization. Previously, I had access only to my exterior world, the world outside of myself and around me. Today, I have access to my inner world, who and what I am and why and how to change that. And that is a vast difference in scriptural terms. Paul calls on us to renew our mind, and Christ explains to take the log out of our own eye before you worry about the speck in someone else's. And honestly, I think you are teaching the tools to do this.
Well, I really appreciate that. Thank you. That's high praise. So with that, let's take that a little deeper. What is something that you can do now emotionally or even relationally? And maybe it's that empathy piece, but I'd love to know if there's something deeper here that you couldn't do before.
Certainly, there is the empathy piece. I think I can see the connections between people that I couldn't before. And
Mm,
and some of that is having learned maybe the significance of biological relationship versus not ever having had any. I had no idea there was significance there. Everybody else saw and worked in the world the way I do.
right.
The empathy piece is huge because I don't necessarily have to feel what someone else is feeling exactly, but being able to understand that they are grappling with real feelings and significant things inside of them and not simply going past that like I would have previously is a change in how I relate to people.
And have people noticed that? Have people brought up that you're different in some way?
Some have. I have customers that have had probably the most access to me over the last year. And certainly a couple of them have seen a lot of change. And at least one, I think, is a little jealous of all of that, but is not yet willing to put in the work to do it, which is kind of comical. And other people that I deal with, I would say that I notice a difference in how they perceive or respond to me versus a year ago. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, that is a good thing. So then, what part of our work together would you say that you're most proud of?
Right off the bat, I am proud of not giving up when it was hard, and there have been some awfully hard times. This is
There
not,
really have.
yeah, this is not an easy thing to do. Most proud of. I'd almost have to go back and look through stacks of journal pages, but there are some of them that I know are pretty well gut wrenching to read, and and simply living through that and staying engaged in it rather than running from it is probably the place to take the most pride.
Hmm. Did you ever feel like I was trying to fix you?
No, if anything, not unlike the Snap-on salesman, you are selling me the tools to fix myself.
So, in those moments, the reason I asked that question because obviously I remember them very well, especially when you were working through the grief recovery stuff. I remember a ton coming up and you pouring out a lot and telling me that the way that you described it was, I'm leaking a lot today. Did I ever try to talk you out of any of that? Or what did you feel in times when you were experiencing all of that?
Seen, and
Okay.
that's a big deal. It did not
Yeah.
feel like you were trying to fix me, and I certainly did not feel judged or belittled or anything else, particularly in the times when I have come off the rails, and there have been several. Yeah, seen and supported would be the best way to put it, I think. I mean, that's a word you use a lot. It's the wrong way to put it. You rare person to trust with the hardest things that I have to say, knowing that you are going to see them and maybe comment, maybe not, have ability to understand why I am saying them, or at least ability to understand where I am trying to go. And so I don't even quite know what to say to it. I don't know another person that you would trust that stuff with. It's where do you find somebody that will help you process the darkest parts of your own shadow world?
Mm-hmm.
And you
Yeah.
have done that.
And
And
meet
you're
them,
grateful.
right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think that's a big part of the work we do really in the beginning is that shadow work. I did not use that terminology. Kelly Brock, when she came in to speak, used that terminology. And I think that was really the beginning of you being able to see an acceptance of the shadow for the first time.
And what else is new?
He's leaking. Tears, honestly. So If someone is listening right now and they feel stuck like you did, life was tough to live and not really wanting to live it, not feeling understood, not feeling seen, what would you want them to know?
You don't have to live like this. And what you do is certainly an effective way to learn how to live differently. That's the nutshell of it. Hang on, because it's not easy, but it's worth it.
I love that. I love that. So what would you say to an adoptee who's afraid to start this work?
It is hard to do. It is not something to get rid of. So you have to step through it and willing to do the work. There is nothing in there that is going to break you any more than you already are. It is a matter of being willing to see and let go of your current coping mechanisms in favor of something a lot better.
How would you help other adoptees realize that this kind of support matters?
It is in many ways a matter of not knowing what you don't know. And the assumption that I am not unique in the adoptee world, having probably never been seen before in my life, or at least not consistently, that is a new experience. And it is a very valuable one. It is a whole different set of experiences than school counselors or even regular therapists. I have seen one, I don't know, several times in the past, and while they had some helpful things to say, none of them had the ability to see me that you do. Again, learning from people with experience rather than people with knowledge is a significant difference. Early on, something that was said was that only adoptees can relate to what another adoptee has felt or experienced. And I think there is a lot of truth in that. Not only are you good at that, but you are good at teaching how and why that works. And that's what makes this very valuable compared to anything else.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. If you could rate what your understanding is of how your body reacts now and how your story has shifted, how would you rate it on a scale from 1 to 10? Where were you when you started and where are you now?
Well, when I started, I was at 0 or in some very small decimal points. And I would say now I am 8 or above.
Did you say an 8 or above?
8 or above.
Yeah. Well, that's encouraging. What does it feel like to be coached in this way? Because it's different than talk therapy. What does it feel like to be coached?
I'd have to say safe and inviting. And you have seen the progression from trepidation to willingness over the last year. And and that is for the safety and trust you have built and earned.
What if somebody came to you and was asking about the work that you're doing and was considering working with me in one of my programs or one-on-one? What would you say to them?
Say as long as they don't have some personal challenge with you, do it.
What kind of personal challenge would somebody have with me? That's funny.
No, but there are always people who simply clash. And so
Sure.
as long as you and they don't clash, do it. Because if there is a better way to deal with all of this stuff, I have no idea what it is or where you go to learn it.
Awesome. If you could go back and stand with younger Mike, the you or the version of you before this work, what would you want him to know now?
There is a tunnel and there is a light at the end of it. Whereas a year and a half ago, I'd say I felt like the coyote running into the mountainside where he had just painted the tunnel on it.
You ran right into the mountainside.
You can picture that.
I sure can. Thank you. What is that? Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner?
Yep. Yeah, that's old news, but we're old enough to know that.
Absolutely. Okay. So you would tell him you're not going to run into the mountain. You'll be able to get through to the other side and there will be light and there is hope. Well, that's probably a great place to end. So I'm really grateful that you took the time to talk to me today.
You are very welcome.
Have a wonderful day. This will actually be released on Christmas Day, FYI. So that'll be interesting. It'll be a nice little gift to y'all. Correct. That's all right. Well, have a great day. And I will talk to you later. And thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do this with me.
Yeah. By 5:30, I'll not have on a dress shirt. I'll be back in coveralls and dirt.
I believe it. Thanks, Mike. We'll talk to you soon.
I hope so. Have a good day.
Thanks. Thank you so much for listening today. And if this conversation resonated with you and you're looking for more support like the Revolution program can offer, please feel free to DM me at any of the different social platforms that you will see in the show notes, and I would be more than happy to have a conversation with you. And if this resonated and you just want something to support you, just drop the word podcast in one of those platforms and DM me that word, and I will send you something that can support you that would be in line with what you hear here in my podcast. So great to be with you today. I hope you have a fabulous Christmas, and we'll talk to you next Thursday, which is New Year's. My goodness, we are heading into a new year. So grateful to be together and look forward to spending more time with you in the new year.